The meeting room aboard the Zephyrian flagship stretched longer than 3 human city blocks. 7 different alien species sat around a crystal table that glowed with soft blue light. Each representative looked different from the others. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few looked like walking trees with too many eyes. Agent Kethver stood at the head of the table. His purple skin showed dark patterns that moved when he was thinking hard. Today those patterns moved very fast. He was nervous, but he tried not to show it. "We have a problem," Kethver said. His voice made a clicking sound when he spoke. "The humans are getting too strong, too fast." The collective had been watching Earth for 50 years. First, the humans seemed harmless. They could not even leave their own planet without help. Their technology was simple compared to other space-traveling races. Their weapons were basic metal tubes that shot tiny pieces of metal, but something worried the alien watchers. Humans learned faster than any other species they had ever seen, much faster than the data, said Commander Threshka. "Look, like a giant insect with silver wings." Her people had been watching space for thousands of years. They knew what dangerous species looked like. Kethver pressed his hand against the crystal table. Numbers and pictures appeared in the air above them. The other aliens leaned forward to look. 50 years ago, humans used chemical rockets to reach their moon, Kethver explained. 20 years ago, they built their first space station. 10 years ago, they sent robots to other planets in their system. Last year, they tested a ship that can travel faster than light. The room became very quiet. Faster than light travel usually took a species 500 years to develop after they first reached space. Humans had done it in less than 100 years. That is not the worst part, Kethver continued. The patterns on his skin moved even faster now. Look at what they do when they find something new. More pictures appeared in the air. The aliens saw human scientists study and crashed alien probes. They watched human engineers taking apart pieces of advanced technology. They saw human soldiers testing new weapons based on designs they had stolen from other races. They do not just learn, said Kethver. They improve everything they touch. They make it better than the original, and they make it into a weapon. A tall alien with 4 arms spoke up. His name was General Zorth, and his people had conquered 12 star systems. So we destroy them now while they are still weak. Send our war fleets. End this before it becomes a real threat. No, said Kethver quickly. That would be a mistake. A big mistake. The other aliens looked surprised. Kethver was known for being careful, but this seemed too careful. If we attack them directly, the humans will unite, Kethver explained. They fight each other now, but they always stop fighting each other when something from outside threatens them. All of human history shows this pattern. Give them a common enemy, and they become much more dangerous. Commander Threshka made a sound like glass breaking. It was how her people laughed. So what do you suggest? We let them grow stronger. I suggest we make them destroy themselves, Kethver said. The dark patterns on his skin formed shapes that looked like smiles. We have studied human civilization very carefully. It depends completely on their technology, their food, their power, their communication, their transportation. Everything needs machines to work. He pressed the table again. New pictures showed human cities full of lights, roads covered with metal vehicles, and tall buildings reaching toward the sky. Humans have 7 billion people on their planet, Kethver continued. Most of them live in huge cities. These cities need constant supplies of food, water, and power. Take away their technology, and the cities become death traps. The other aliens began to understand. One of them, who looked like a walking fish with legs, spoke in a voice like bubbling water. You want to break their machines? All of their machines, Kethver confirmed. At the same time, across their entire planet, he showed them his plan. The collective had developed tiny robots called nanobots. These robots were smaller than human. Cells they could hide inside any piece of technology and wait for the right signal. When activated, they would eat the metal and plastic and computer chips from the inside. We have already begun, Kethver said. Every time humans send a probe into space, we intercept it, add our nanobots, and send it back. The humans think their probes are just returning with space dust and cosmic radiation. They do not know they are bringing millions of our tiny robots back to Earth. The plan was perfect in its simplicity. The nanobots would spread through human technology like a disease. They would hide in computers, power plants, vehicles, communication systems, and manufacturing equipment. For months, they would do nothing but copy themselves and spread to new machines. Then, on the chosen day, all the nanobots would activate at once. Every piece of advanced technology on Earth would begin to break down. Power grids would fail. Communications would go silent. Transportation would stop. Manufacturing would cease. Within weeks, human civilization would collapse under its own weight. The humans will be too busy trying to survive to think about space travel, Kethfer explained. Those who live will spend the rest of their lives growing food and making simple tools. They will never threaten anyone again. General Zorth looked impressed despite himself. How long will this take? The nanobots are already in place, Kethfer said. We have been seeding their technology for 3 years. Our computer models show a 97.3% chance of complete civilizational collapse within 6 months of activation, and the remaining 2.7%? Asked Commander Threshka. Kethfer's skin patterns shifted into what looked like a shrug. Small groups of survivors in remote areas. Farmers, hunters, people who live away from the big cities. They will have no technology, no industry, no way to rebuild. It will be harmless. The vote was unanimous. 7 alien species agreed to activate the nanobots and watch humanity destroy itself. None of them understood the most important thing about humans. When everything goes wrong, when death seems certain, when hope disappears, that is when humans become most dangerous. That is when they stop following rules and start making new ones. That is when they become monsters. The first power grid failed at exactly 3 in the morning, Tokyo time. The nanobots had been waiting inside the electrical systems for months, growing stronger and spreading to every piece of connected equipment. When Kethfer sent the activation signal from his ship, billions of tiny robots began eating the wires and circuits from the inside. Sarah Chen was working late in her laboratory in Hong Kong when the lights went out. As a systems engineer for the city's power company, she had seen blackouts before, but this felt different. Her backup generator should have kicked in within seconds. Instead, everything stayed dark. She grabbed her emergency radio and tried to contact the main control center. Only static came through the speakers. She tried her cell phone. No signal. Even her satellite communication device was dead. Sarah walked to the window and looked out at the city. Hong Kong should have been blazing with lights even at this hour. Instead, she saw only darkness spreading like a disease across the harbor. A few car headlights moved on the streets below, but even those were going out one by one. Across the Pacific Ocean, similar scenes played out in Los Angeles, New York, and Chicago. In Europe, London and Paris went dark. In Africa, the few major cities with modern power grids lost their electricity. The nanobots worked exactly as programmed, spreading through the global infrastructure like a virus. But the aliens watching from space began to see something they had not expected. Instead of panic and chaos, they saw lights coming back on. Not electric lights, but fires, thousands of them, all across the planet in Manhattan. Former Army Sergeant Mike Rodriguez gathered his neighbors in the apartment building's courtyard. He had been expecting something like this for years. It's not alien sabotage, but some kind of major disaster that would knock out the power grid. "Listen up, people," Mike said, his voice carrying over the crowd of frightened residents. "The power's not coming back anytime soon, maybe not at all. But we're going to survive this. We're going to help each other survive this." Mike had lived through 3 tours in Afghanistan. He knew how to organize people under pressure. He divided the building's residents into teams. One group would secure food and water. Another would work on backup power, using car batteries and solar panels salvaged from the roof. A third team would establish communication with other buildings in the area. The same scene repeated itself in thousands of locations around the world. Retired military officers took charge of their neighborhoods. Engineers worked with mechanics to build makeshift power systems. Doctors organized medical teams using supplies from pharmacies and hospitals. The aliens had made their first mistake. They assumed that without central government and electronic communication, humans would become helpless and isolated. Instead, humans began forming new networks based on personal relationships and local knowledge. In a small town in Montana, ranch owner Betty Wilson gathered her neighbors in the old community center. The building had been built in 1952, before most electronic systems existed. It still had a wood-burning stove for heat and oil lamps for light. "My grandfather lived through the Great Depression," Betty told the group. "He always said that tough times don't last, but tough people do. We're going to prove him right." Betty's ranch had solar panels that the nanobots had not completely destroyed. Working with Jim Martinez, a former NASA technician who had retired to Montana, she began building a communication network using ham radios and relay stations powered by backup batteries. Within 2 weeks, Betty's network connected 50 small towns across 3 states. They shared information about which equipment still worked, where to find spare parts, and how to modify devices to resist the ongoing technological breakdown. Sarah Chen made the discovery that changed everything. While examining failed circuit boards in her laboratory, she found something that should not have been there. Tiny mechanical devices, smaller than human cells, were embedded in the metal and plastic. They were still moving, still eating the materials around them. Sarah had studied nanotechnology in college. She knew these were not natural. Someone had put them there on purpose. Using a microscope powered by a hand crank generator, she began studying the tiny robots. They were incredibly advanced, far beyond anything humans had developed. But they followed simple programming. They ate certain types of metals and plastics. They copied themselves when they found enough raw materials. And they responded to radio signals from space. Sarah realized that Earth was under attack. She tried to contact the government, but most communication systems were still down. Instead, she shared her discovery with Betty Wilson's radio network. Ham radio operators across the country began spreading the word. Earth was being sabotaged by someone with technology far more advanced than anything humans possessed. The news changed everything. Humans stopped thinking about this as a natural disaster or system failure. They began thinking about it as a war. In Detroit, former auto worker Carlos Mendez had been leading efforts to restore manufacturing capability using older, simpler machines. When he heard about the alien nanobots, he shifted his focus. Instead of just fixing broken equipment, he began designing new systems that would be immune to the tiny robots. Carlos discovered that the nanobots could not eat certain alloys and ceramics. They also had trouble with mechanical systems that did not use electricity. Working with a team of engineers and machinists, he began producing hybrid technology that combined old and new techniques. Meanwhile, Dr. Jennifer Park, a biochemist, at Johns Hopkins University, was studying the nanobots from a different angle. She wanted to understand how they worked so she could find a way to stop them. Working in a laboratory powered by bicycle generators, Jennifer discovered something amazing. The nanobots were programmable. With the right equipment, she could change their instructions. Instead of eating human technology, she could make them repair it. Or even better, she could make them improve it. 6 months after the Great Collapse began, humanity was not dying. The aliens watching from space saw something impossible. Human civilization was rebuilding itself, but it was rebuilding into something completely different. Cities now combined high technology with low technology in ways that made no logical sense. Solar panels powered factories that made steam engines. Computer networks ran on fiber optic cables protected by ceramic tubing that nanobots could not digest. Transportation systems used everything from electric trains to horse-drawn carriages, depending on what worked best in each location, most disturbing to the alien observers. Humans were beginning to understand and modify the nanobots themselves. Instead of just defending against the attack, they were turning the weapons into tools. Agent Kethfer stared at the reports from his monitoring stations. His skin patterns moved in shapes that showed confusion and growing fear. The humans should have been dead by now. Their civilization should have collapsed completely. Instead, they had become something new, something that used both human technology and alien technology together, something that was growing stronger every day. The sabotage had not destroyed humanity. It had forced them to evolve. 18 months after the nanobots first attacked, Sarah Chen stood on the roof of what used to be the Hong Kong Stock Exchange building. The old financial center had been transformed into something that would have seemed impossible before the collapse. Gardens grew on every level, fed by water from atmospheric processors that pulled moisture directly from the air. Solar panels covered the south-facing walls, but they were not like the old panels. These new ones were half-human technology, and half-alien nanobots working together. Sarah watched as a delivery drone landed on the rooftop platform. The machine looked organic, like a metal bird with too many wings. Its body was made from materials that could repair themselves when damaged. The nanobots that once destroyed human technology now helped build better versions of everything.
Dr.
Chen, we have another breakthrough, called Tom Williams, her research partner. Tom had been a software engineer before the collapse. Now he was one of the world's leading experts on human-alien hybrid technology. Sarah followed Tom into the laboratory. The room buzzed with activity as dozens of researchers worked on projects that combined human creativity with alien engineering precision. In one corner, a team was growing computer processors using modified nanobots. In another, engineers were testing engines that could run on almost any fuel. "Look at this," Tom said, pointing to a device on his workbench. It looked like a smartphone, but it was 3 times thicker and had a surface that shifted color depending on the light. It's a quantum communicator. It can send messages instantly to anywhere in the solar system. Sarah picked up the device. It felt warm and slightly alive in her hands. "How fast is instantly?" "Faster than light," Tom explained. "The nanobots create quantum-entangled particles that stay connected no matter how far apart they are. When you change one particle, the other changes at the same moment." This was impossible according to everything Sarah had learned in school. But the past 18 months had taught her that. Impossible was just another word for something humans had not figured out yet. The quantum communicator was just one example of the new hybrid technology spreading across Earth. In the ruins of Detroit, Carlos Mendez had built a factory that produced fusion reactors small enough to power a single house. The reactors used alien nanobots to contain the fusion reaction in ways that human science said could not work. In Montana, Day Wilson's ranch had become a testing ground for new transportation systems. Vehicles that could fly, drive, or swim depending on the terrain. Ships that could repair themselves and adapt to new environments. All of them powered by fusion engines and controlled by computers that thought almost like living creatures. Most impressive changes were happening in the cities. New York had been rebuilt around vertical farms that stretched hundreds of stories into the sky. The farms used hybrid technology to grow food faster and with less water than traditional agriculture. The buildings themselves were alive in a way, using modified nanobots to adjust their structure based on weather, earthquakes, and the needs of the people inside. But the aliens watching from space were most concerned about the weapons. Dr. Jennifer Park had made the breakthrough that worried Agent Kethver more than anything else. Working in her laboratory in Baltimore, she had figured out how to program nanobots to work together in large groups. Millions of tiny robots acting as one mind, able to solve problems and adapt to new situations. Jennifer called them liberation. Bots because they freed humans from the limitations of traditional technology. But Kethver saw them for what they really were. Weapons that could think. The first demonstration happened on a Tuesday morning. A cargo ship had been attacked by pirates off the coast of Somalia. The ship's captain activated the new defense, a system that Jennifer's team had installed. Clouds of liberation bots poured from hidden compartments on the ship. Within minutes, the nanobots had disabled the pirates' engines, weapons, and communication systems. The pirates found themselves floating in dead boats while the cargo ship continued on its way. The liberation bots had not killed anyone. They had simply made it impossible for the pirates to cause harm. But Kethver understood the implications. If humans could do this to pirates, they could do it to anyone. More disturbing reports reached the alien fleet every day. Humans were spreading beyond Earth faster than ever before, The Mars colonies that should have died during the collapse were now thriving. They had used the crisis to develop completely new ways of living in space. The Mars settlement of New Geneva had grown from 3,000 people to 50,000 in just 18 months. The colonists had built underground cities that expanded themselves using armies of construction nanobots. It created atmospheric processors that turned the thin Martian air into something humans could breathe. Most impressive of all, they had built ships that could travel from Mars to Earth in less than a week. Commander Sarah Martinez stood in the control center of the first Menster Vanlight ship built by humans. The UES Pioneer looked nothing like the old chemical rockets. Its hull seemed to flow like liquid metal, constantly reshaping itself for optimal performance. The engine used principles that combined human understanding of physics with alien nanotechnology to fold space around the ship. All systems ready for jump test, reported her navigation officer. Lieutenant Kim Nakamura had been a commercial pilot before the collapse. Now she was learning to navigate through dimensions that humans had only theoretical knowledge of. Begin. Jump sequence, Sarah ordered. The ship's hull rippled as millions of nanobots reconfigured the engine systems. Space around the Pioneer began to bend and twist. Stars that should have been light years away suddenly appeared close enough to touch. The jump lasted only seconds. But when it ended, the Pioneer was orbiting Jupiter instead of Mars. They had traveled 500 million miles in less time than it took to blink. Agent Kethfer received the report while he was meeting with the Collective's Emergency Council. 7 alien species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years were now seriously worried about one species that had barely learned to leave its home planet. They have achieved faster-than-light travel, Kethfer reported. His skin patterns showed colors that meant extreme alarm, not just achieved it. They have perfected it beyond anything we possess. General Zorth's forearms moved in agitation. How is this possible? Their technology was primitive 18 months ago. He gave them the tools, Kethfer admitted. The admission was painful, but he could not deny the facts. Our nanobots were designed to destroy their technology. Instead, the humans learned. To control our nanobots, they've combined our technology with theirs to create something neither species could have built alone. Commander Threshka made the sound that meant her people were preparing for war. Then we destroy them now, before they become stronger. It may already be too late, Kethfer said quietly. Our intelligence reports indicate that human ships are already exploring beyond their solar system. They are learning about our trade routes, our colonies, our military positions. He showed the council the latest images from Earth, cities that rebuilt themselves, factories that created new technologies daily, ships that grew like living things in orbital shipyards. All of it powered by technology that humans had stolen from their would-be destroyers. We tried to make them weak, Kethfer concluded. Instead, we made them into monsters. The hybrid revolution was complete. Humanity had survived the attempt to destroy them. More than survived, they had evolved into something that combined the best aspects of human creativity and alien technology. Now, they were coming for their attackers. The emergency meeting of the Zephyrian Collective had been going on for 6 hours. 7 alien species that had never agreed on anything were now united by one thing: fear. Fear of what humanity had become. Agent Kethfer stood before a massive holographic display showing the latest intelligence reports. Red dots marked human ships spreading across nearby star systems like an infection. Each dot represented technology that should not exist, powered by principles that challenged everything. The Collective thought they knew about physics. They have established bases in 12 star systems, Kethfer reported. His purple skin showed patterns of deep worry. Mining operations, research stations, and what appeared to be military outposts, all built in the past 6 months. General, Zorth slammed 2 of his 4 fists on the table. How many ships do they have? We estimate 300 vessels capable of faster-than-light travel, Kethfer replied. But our numbers may be wrong. Human ships seem to grow and divide like living creatures. A single ship can become 2 ships, then 4, then 8. Commander Threshka's silver wings buzzed with agitation. What do they want? Are they planning to attack us? Kethfer activated a recording that had been intercepted 3 days earlier. The voice that filled the room was calm, clear, and spoke in perfect galactic standard. It was a woman's voice, but there was something cold about it that made all the aliens uncomfortable. To the species known as the Zephyrian Collective, the voice said, "We know who you are. We know what you did to our world. We know about your nanobots, your sabotage, and your plan to destroy human civilization. We are coming to discuss this matter with you. We suggest you prepare for negotiations." The recording ended. The room stayed silent for a long moment. "Negotiations?" General Zorth repeated. "They want to talk." "No," said Kethfer quietly. "They want us to know they are coming. There is a difference." The first human ship appeared at the edge of collective space 2 days later. It materialized. Without warning, near the mining colony of Zerth Prime, it's a small world where the collective extracted rare metals for their technology. The ship was unlike anything in the collective's databases. It was 3 kilometers long, but seemed to flow and change shape as it moved. Its hull was dark, but showed patterns of light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Most disturbing of all, it seemed to be scanning everything within 100 light-years. Learning about collective technology and defenses, Captain Vorthan commanded the collective patrol ship that was sent to intercept the human vessel. He had fought in 12 major battles and conquered 6 star systems. He was not afraid of anything that lived in the galaxy. "Unknown vessel, you are in restricted collective space," Vorthan transmitted. "Identify yourself and state your intentions." The response came immediately. "This is Captain Marcus Rodriguez of the United Earthship Reconstruction. We are here to recover stolen property and discuss terms for peace between our species." Looked at his tactical officer. "Stolen property? What could we have stolen from them?" The human captain's voice came through the speakers again. "You stole 2 years of human development. You stole the lives lost during your sabotage. You stole our trust. You're here to collect payment for these debts. Your ship is outnumbered." "And outgunned," Vorthan replied. He was looking at his scanners, which showed his battle cruiser was twice the size of the human ship and carried weapons that could destroy small moons. "Withdraw immediately, or we will open fire." "I do not." "Withdraw," Captain Rodriguez said. "Please reconsider your threat. We would prefer to resolve this peacefully." Vorthan had been in the military for 30 years. He knew a bluff when he heard one. The human ship might be advanced, but it was still just one vessel against his heavily armed cruiser. "Fire all weapons," he ordered. The collective battle cruiser unleashed everything it had. Plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, and gravity bombs erupted toward the human ship. Enough firepower to destroy a small fleet struck the UES. Reconstruction directly. The human ship absorbed the attack like a sponge absorbing water. The energy weapons seemed to feed it, making the whole glow brighter. Explosive weapons detonated harmlessly against barriers that appeared and disappeared as needed. When the attack ended, the reconstruction was not only undamaged, it was larger than before. "Our turn," Captain Rodriguez said calmly. The human ship did not fire weapons. Instead, it released clouds of what looked like metallic dust. The clouds spread out and surrounded the collective cruiser in seconds. Vorthan watched in horror as his ship's systems began shutting down one by one. "What are you doing to us?" he demanded. Rodriguez replied. "Your ship's computers are learning about human technology. Your weapons are being upgraded. With human improvements, your life support systems are being optimized for better efficiency. Consider this a gift." Within minutes, Vorthan's ship had been completely transformed. It still looked like a collective cruiser, but it now used hybrid human-alien technology that was more advanced than anything in the galaxy. More importantly, it now responded to human commands as well as collective ones. "You can keep your ship," Rodriguez told the stunned collective captain, "but it now reports to us as well as to you. Prefer cooperation to conquest, but we will accept either one." The news of the reconstruction's easy victory spread through collective space faster than light travel. Panic began to set in as alien leaders realized that their most advanced warships were no match for human technology. But Captain Rodriguez was not done with his demonstration. The EU's reconstruction visited 12 more collective worlds in the next week. At each location, it upgraded local defenses, improved planetary systems, and left behind human technology that made life better for everyone. The humans were not conquering through destruction. They were conquering through improvement. They made everything they touched work better, faster, and more efficiently. Resistance became pointless because the humans were offering things that every species wanted. Dr. Sarah Chen, now serving as Earth's first ambassador to alien species, arrived at the collective's capital world aboard a ship that looked more like a living creature than a machine. The vessel called itself the UES Evolution, and it had grown from a single nanomachini into a kilometer long. Starship in just 3 months, Sarah walked into the same meeting room where the collective had planned humanity's destruction. But now, she was not a victim seeking mercy. She was a representative of the galaxy's newest superpower, offering terms that the collective could not refuse. "Gentlemen," Sarah said, looking around the table at 7 species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia, "let us discuss the future." Agent Kethver stared at the human woman who had once been a simple engineer in Hong Kong. Now she carried technology that could reshape reality itself. The nanobots in her bloodstream had enhanced her intelligence, her strength, and her lifespan. She was no longer entirely human, but she was something better. "What do you want from us?" Kethver asked. Sarah smiled. It was not a cruel smile, but it was not entirely human either. "We want what you tried to take from us. We want your technology, your knowledge, and your cooperation in building something better than what existed before. And if we refuse?" Sarah's smile became wider. "You have seen what happens to ships that refuse our improvements. They become better ships. The same principle applies to civilizations. The collective had tried to destroy humanity and failed. Now humanity was offering them a choice: join willingly or be improved against their will. The hunters had become the hunted. The prey had become the predator, and the galaxy would never be the same. 5 years had passed since the nanobots first attacked Earth. The galaxy was no longer the same place it had been before humans learned to travel between the stars. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the control center of New Geneva Station, orbiting what used to be called Alpha Centauri. The station stretched for 50 kilometers in every direction, a living structure that grew and changed based on the needs of its inhabitants. Millions of beings from dozens of species lived and worked together in ways that would have been impossible before the human revolution. Sarah was no longer entirely human. The nanobots in her body had enhanced every cell, making her stronger, smarter, and able to live for centuries instead of decades. Her eyes could see across multiple spectrums of light. Her brain could process information faster than the most advanced computers. But she still remembered being the frightened engineer who had discovered the first alien nanobots in her laboratory. "Ambassador Chen, the morning reports are ready," said her assistant. The being that spoke looked like a combination of the old Zephyrian purple skin and human features. Like many in the new galaxy, they were a hybrid of multiple species, enhanced by human biotechnology. Sarah reviewed the reports with interest. The collective's former military had been completely integrated into the human expansion network. Their ships now used hybrid technology that made them faster and more efficient than anything that had existed before. More importantly, they now served a purpose beyond conquest and control. The old Zephyrian territories were being transformed into research and development centers. Worlds that had once been strip-mined for resources were now covered with cities that produced new technologies daily. The inhabitants lived longer, healthier lives than their ancestors could have imagined, but Sarah knew. The transformation went much deeper than new technology and longer lives. Humanity had not just conquered the galaxy, they had absorbed it, improved it, and made it into something completely new. Captain Marcus Rodriguez walked onto the station's command bridge. 5 years of leading humanity's expansion had changed him as much as it had changed Sarah. His body was now part biological and part technological, able to interface directly with any ship or computer system. His mind was connected to the human network, a quantum communication system that linked every human settlement across the galaxy. "The final integration is complete," Marcus reported. "The last holdout worlds have accepted hybrid technology upgrades. There are no more independent systems in this sector of the galaxy." Sarah nodded. It had taken 5 years, But humanity had succeeded in doing what no other species had ever managed. They had united an entire galaxy under one system of cooperation and mutual improvement. "Any resistance?" she asked. "3 mining colonies tried to maintain their old equipment," Marcus replied. "We upgraded their systems overnight while they slept. When they woke up, their productivity had increased by 400%, and their environmental impact had dropped to 0. They sent thank you messages this morning." This was how human conquest worked. They did not destroy what they found, they made it better. They made it so much better that resistance became pointless. Agent Kethver entered the command center, walking slowly on legs that were now partially mechanical. The nanobots had extended his lifespan by centuries, but they had also changed his body in ways that reminded him daily of humanity's power over his species. "The Outer Rim survey is complete," Kethver reported. He now served as a cultural advisor to the Human Expansion Network, helping newly contacted species adapt to their integration into the galactic community. "We have identified 17 new civilizations in the next spiral arm. Threat assessment," Sarah asked. "None of them pose any danger to human interests," Kethver replied. "The most advanced species has barely achieved nuclear fusion. The least advanced is still using chemical rockets for space travel." Sarah smiled. It was the same smile she had shown the collective 5 years ago, but now it carried the confidence of someone who had reshaped an entire galaxy. "Prepare first contact protocols. Standard integration timeline." The standard integration timeline was something that would have terrified the old collective. Within 6 months of first contact, any new species would have their technology upgraded, their lifespan extended, and their society integrated into the human network. It was not conquest in the old sense. It was evolution guided by human intelligence and alien cooperation. But Sarah often wondered if humanity was still human in any meaningful way. The original 7 billion people of Earth had become something much larger. Trillions of beings across thousands of worlds, all connected by quantum networks that made them think and act as parts of a single organism. Children born in the new galaxy were different from their parents in ways that went beyond the obvious technological enhancements. They thought in terms of galactic civilizations rather than individual planets. They solved problems by accessing the knowledge of entire species. They saw the universe as something to be improved rather than simply explored. Little Emma Rodriguez, Marcus's daughter, was playing in the station's garden when Sarah found her. The 8-year-old girl was using tools that could manipulate gravity and quantum fields as easily as old human children had played with blocks and dolls. "What are you building, Emma?" Sarah asked. The girl looked up with eyes that sparkled with intelligence no 8-year-old should possess. "I am designing a new type of star," she said matter-of-factly. "The current models are very inefficient. They waste most of their energy as heat and radiation. My design will burn cooler and last much longer." Sarah knelt down beside the child. "That sounds very impressive. What will you do with your new stars?" Emma's face lit up with excitement. "I want to build them around the edge of the galaxy. That way, when we finish improving everything here, we will have lights to guide us to the next galaxy. The next galaxy." Sarah realized that Emma was already thinking beyond the Milky Way. To her, improving an entire galaxy was just the first step in a much larger project. "How many galaxies do you think need improving?" Sarah asked. Emma thought about this seriously for a moment. "All of them," she finally said. "Everything in the universe can be made better. That is what humans do." Sarah stood up and looked out. Through the station's transparent walls, at the stars beyond, each point of light represented worlds that had been transformed by human technology and ambition. Civilizations that had been struggling to survive were now thriving beyond their wildest dreams. But Emma was right. This was just the beginning. Agent Kethber joined Sarah at the observation window. His old enemy had become something like a friend. Over the years, bound together by their shared role in reshaping the galaxy, "Do you ever regret what happened?" Sarah asked him. Kethver was quiet for a long moment. "I regret that we tried to destroy you," he finally said, "but I do not regret. The results, the galaxy, is a better place now than it was before." He was right. There was no more war between species. No more hunger on advanced worlds. No more civilizations struggling alone in the darkness between stars. Humanity had created something that was greater than the sum of its parts. "What do you think we have become?" Sarah asked. Kethfer looked at her with eyes that had been enhanced to see across dimensions. "You have become what every species secretly dreams of becoming. You are gardeners of the universe, making everything you touch grow stronger and more beautiful." Sarah smiled and watched as human ships departed for the edge of the galaxy, carrying the tools and knowledge needed to begin the next phase of expansion. Behind them, they left a galaxy that had been transformed from a collection of competing species into a single, unified organism dedicated to growth and improvement. The alien sabotage had indeed backfired. Instead of destroying humanity, it had created something that would reshape the universe itself. And in the garden outside the command center, a little girl continued playing with tools that could build new stars, already dreaming of the day when her people would bring light to the darkness between galaxies.